What's up, guys? Wildcard weekend is on the horizon. Lots of coaching changes in the NFL. Let's talk about it. After week 18, we now have 8 head coaching openings in the NFL. The Ravens, Giants, Browns, Titans, Dolphins, Cardinals, Raiders, and the Falcons are all looking for new coaches. The big names out there, John Harbaugh, Kevin Stefanski, they were both fired. John Harbaugh may have been a shock to some. I kind of said before the last game in the last podcast, I said that the loser of the Ravens-Steelers game was going to lose their job. I think the situation with Harbaugh, it has just been, they haven't won playoff games in quite a while. And I'm guessing that meeting they had on Monday, he was probably asked to make some staff changes, maybe with the offensive coordinator. I'm assuming he refused, which led to his eventual firing. And it was reported that within 45 minutes, he had 7 inquiries to interview for coaching. That's John Harbaugh, that is. But at the time, there was only 7 openings, and the Ravens were one of them, and they wouldn't have been calling. So that means there's at least 2 teams out there who were looking for his availability, which may have led to Mike McDaniel being fired in Miami, because Mike McDaniel was doing meetings, doing press, having exit meetings with his team, talking to his staff, acting like he was going to be the coach next year and involved in the GM search in Miami. But I think John Harbaugh coming loose from Baltimore led to McDaniels being let go in Miami, which I've been calling for that for most of the season because it seemed like his offense has lost its rhythm. Although the Dolphins did rally and play very well down the stretch, which is why McDaniel thought his job might have been safe in Miami. But again, after meeting with the press and I guess meeting with the owner, I'm assuming in a similar situation, he was asked, he wanted more involvement in the GM search, and I don't think they wanted to give him that power. But John Harbaugh being available and ties with the ownership and the Harbaugh family in Miami seem to have spurred Mike McDaniel being let loose, because everybody was surprised with the Harbaugh firing. Again, if you look, I had a whole thing prepared to talk about just John Harbaugh because it was just such crazy changes. But there's so many, if you look back at all the statistics and the late game losses when they're up by at least 7 points in the fourth quarter and wind up losing those games. I believe they have 12 since 2021 was the stat. So that's a lot of late game losses. One big one this year when they had a big lead on the Bills and wound up losing that game 41-40. That was, I think, the sign where the alarm bells for me were going off in Baltimore. That loss, like losing such a big lead so late with such a good team that had such a great roster on paper and so much was expected of Baltimore this year. I think that was when the alarm bells for me started going off. And with the injuries to Lamar and Lamar Jackson not playing up to his usual standard, and overall the Ravens not playing up to their usual standard, I think that's why John Harbaugh was let go. Again, I think there was some request from ownership to make some staff changes, coordinator changes, and I don't think Harbaugh was up for that. And I think that's what led to his dismissal there. But maybe it's going to be good for him. There's a lot of talk about the players being unhappy and not on the same page, and Lamar Jackson being asked several times his feelings about Harbaugh and not answering and avoiding the questions. That doesn't look good when you've got a star player, like a once-in-a-lifetime player like Lamar Jackson, and if he's not on the same page with Harbaugh and they're not having a good relationship, the amount of money they're paying Lamar Jackson, they're going to pick the player over the coach. Not that it's easier to get a coach with the level of experience and success as John Harbaugh, but it's easier to get a coach who can work with star players and get a roster that should have been a Super Bowl roster this year. It's easier to replace the coach than it is to get a new quarterback that has all the skills that Lamar Jackson has. And Harbaugh, in all their attempts in the playoffs, they haven't been able to get Lamar to win one of these big games in the playoffs. So maybe someone else, it's time for them to come in and see if they can get that to work. It'll be interesting to see if they'll go with a younger coach or if they'll go with someone a little more experienced, like a Mike McCarthy. That's the name that jumped into my head that looks like it might be a good fit from my perspective in Baltimore, but we'll see how this plays out in the next couple of weeks and see how the Ravens go. Other coaches, Jonathan Gannon being fired in Arizona, not a surprise. That team did play well for them and battled all the way to the end. They had a lot of close one-score losses throughout the year, and they could have very easily been like 8-9 or 9-8. But after 3 years, I guess it was time for him to go. Pete Carroll, we already talked about that. That was not a surprise in any way. Kevin Stefanski was a little bit of a surprise, but I think in the similar way with John Harbaugh, I think Stefanski is relieved to be out of that Cleveland Browns quarterback dilemma that they've had for all the years he's there, and going back even further with the Browns. There's a lot of teams out there on this list with some good quarterbacks like the Giants and the Titans that Kevin Stefanski might be able to work well with. I'm feeling like the Giants are going to be zeroing in on Harbaugh and Stefanski. I think the Giants need a name like that, especially with this young, talented roster that the Giants have built together. And if you saw on the sidelines, there's clips on ESPN this morning of Jackson Dart at the Ole Miss game. And if you could read lips, he was asked a question clearly about coaching, because what he's saying is Stefanski and Harbaugh. So I'm assuming if Jackson Dart had the chance to put his 2 cents in on the coach in New York, it seems like Harbaugh and Stefanski would be the choice. And that seems like that would be, I think, the New York fans' favorite, is to get a big name coach like that. Again, there's a very good, talented roster there. And I think Harbaugh or Stefanski would be a good match with Dart. And Harbaugh, I think, would be the better match with that team, with the defense that the Giants have and the tools the Giants have. But we'll wait and see. Are the Giants going to pony up and give Harbaugh that shot? Or maybe Harbaugh has other thoughts on where he wants to land. He's pretty much going to pick the job. I think all the teams that have coaching openings want a John Harbaugh with his success and, the expectations every year. The Ravens always were competing for division titles and playoff spots. I think somebody with that kind of track record, you'd want them in your organization. He knows how to put a team together. So we'll wait to see where the John Harbaugh winds up. And I think John Harbaugh is everybody's darling choice in all these teams looking for coaches. And maybe some of the teams that are still even in the playoffs might want to consider Harbaugh. It's just so interesting because if the Ravens wound up beating the Steelers last week, it doesn't mean Harbaugh would have held his job if they didn't, unless they won the Super Bowl. I think the writing was on the wall that it was time for a change and a lot of the grumbling with the players. But if that kick went through and the Steelers lost, we might be talking about Mike Tomlin right now. Instead, we're talking about John Harbaugh. So we'll see. I think Mike McDaniel in Miami, I think he's probably one of the better choices when it comes to an offensive coordinator opening, like maybe in Washington. Washington let Cliff Kingsbury go, and I think Mike McDaniel and Jaden Daniels might be a good matchup there, a good pairing. So we'll wait to see if that's how that works. I'm sure Mike McDaniel's going to need a minute because he thought he was coaching the Dolphins, and he was acting like he was coaching the Dolphins, and all the reporting and all the things I'm seeing and reading. He's caught off guard by this. And I am too, because you don't usually let a coach that you're about to fire speak to the press and talk about plans for the next season. And they did that. But like I said earlier, I think when John Harbaugh came free in Baltimore, that changed things in the Miami ownership thinking. It'll be interesting to see if any of these coaches besides a Harbaugh and Stefanski, if like a Jonathan Gannon and Mike McDaniel and Raheem Morris, do they get head coaching offers for any of these openings? Or I'm feeling more like Jonathan Gannon and Mike McDaniel go back into the coordinator pool and work their way back to a head coaching position after a couple of years as a coordinator with the team. We'll see how that goes. Pete Carroll has had a great career. I think this was his last shot. I don't think we're going to see Pete Carroll coaching in the NFL anymore, which is a shame. Great coach, but it just didn't work out in Vegas. It is what it is. Brian Callahan is another one of those coaches, and Brian Daboll, who were let go during the season. I think these guys might wind up somewhere as coordinators, but I don't think head coaching opportunities are going to come up for these guys in this head coaching cycle. And maybe even one or both of those guys goes to college and maybe takes a head coaching position in college, or a high profile coordinator position at one of the bigger schools who compete for national championships every year. Maybe those guys wind up somewhere like that, but we will see. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts? Drop a comment below. What do you think? Who do you think should hire a John Harbaugh or Kevin Stefanski? What's a good fit? I would be interested to see Kevin Stefanski wind up in Baltimore, to be quite honest. That would be an interesting take, and then he would get to play against the Browns twice a year for his length of his contract or however long he's there. I think that might be an interesting fit. I think that might actually be an interesting fit for Lamar Jackson as well. I would like to see that one just for the storylines and the drama, and every time they match up going forward, it'll be a Kevin Stefanski revenge game against the Browns. That would be my, if Kevin Stefanski, I want to see Kevin Stefanski either go to the Ravens or go to the Giants. And if John Harbaugh, let's say, winds up with the Giants, Kevin Stefanski should go to Baltimore. That would be just a juicy bit of excitement every time those teams play for the next couple of years. That would be fun. Wild card weekend is right ahead of us. We've got just a couple of hours before the games begin on Saturday. Rams and Panthers. The game is in Carolina, and Carolina and their defense did turn over Matt Stafford a bunch of times and beat them during the regular season. So they're not afraid of going up against the Rams, and the defensive backs that Carolina have are elite, and I think can hang with the weapons the Rams can throw at them, and did with Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua. I think Horn and Mike Jackson can hang with those guys. It's going to be a tough game. They definitely have the confidence. We'll see how the Carolina fans bring their energy and inspire this team. The Rams are favored, better record. They've got the more exciting roster on paper, but you got to give the Panthers credit. They hung with them. I wouldn't be surprised if they won this game just based on that, the home field advantage and the confidence from beating them in the regular season. But I feel the Rams are on a mission. They were one of my favorites to win the whole thing in NFC, and I think they're going to step up in Carolina and avenge their earlier regular season loss. Now, the Bears-Packers on Saturday night. I'm feeling like the Packers can win this game. They split during the regular season, but the Bears win came having to have an onside kick go their way, which was a miracle, and then capitalize on that, which they did, and they deserve all the credit for that win because that was an amazing thing. But I think the Packers, having Jordan Love also get knocked out of that game, Jordan Love is coming back. The Packers, when you hear them talking, they're looking for some payback. They don't feel like they should have lost that game. They feel like they should have swept the Bears in the regular season. And, even without Micah Parsons, the Packers, it took that onside kick for the Bears to beat them. Excuse the snoring. I'm sure you guys can hear the snoring, and my dog is over here snoring. I'm just going to acknowledge it because I'm not sure if it's going to EQ out when I do this. So Barkley is snoring. I'm trying to give this report. I can hear him even through my headphones. So anyway, I think the Packers might win this one. They've been pretty dominant in this series against the Bears over the last several years. Ben Johnson, his speech when he was hired, saying how he loves beating the Packers, and Coach LaFleur, I think they're keeping that in mind every time they play. This is why I keep saying this is going to be an exciting, juicy rivalry as long as these two coaches are ahead of these teams for the next several years. So we'll have to see how that goes. And the games on Sunday, we got the Bills and Jaguars. The Jaguars are getting no respect. I really think the Jaguars are going to win this game. It's going to be a close game, but the way the Jaguars dominated the Broncos a couple of weeks ago, and they've just been rolling, and they took care of business last week and just destroyed the Titans in their last game. I think they are not fooling around here, and they are really enjoying the Rodney Dangerfield no respect angle. You know, the small market team, the comments that were made, everybody's overlooking them. Their defense is really good at taking the ball away. They've done it all year. Look at the stats. They've had multiple takeaways. They have a really solid defense, and the Bills are kind of struggling, but Josh Allen is the most experienced and most talented player in the AFC side. As far as quarterbacks go, he's got a lot to prove, and I think if the Bills, this is their chance. The Chiefs are not in their way. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are sitting at home. So this is really the Bills' shot, but the Jaguars might just be too tough for them to overcome this year. And then you got to start thinking in Buffalo, things might have to change a little bit, because if they can't get to the Super Bowl this year, you know, the time is running out. Josh Allen's been here a while, and they might have to look to make some changes in Buffalo if they don't win this game. Eagles and 49ers. I think this is going to be the best matchup on Sunday. The Eagles are starting to run the ball well. The 49ers did very poorly against the Seahawks last week, stopping the run. I think this might be a recipe for disaster for the 49ers. If the Eagles can run the ball and not turn it over, and Jalen Hurts cannot turn it over, they've got so many weapons on the offensive side of the ball. The 49ers defense is going to be in trouble. The 49ers, I'm a little worried about Brock Purdy. He did hurt his hand, if anybody clocked that. In the last game, he had a pass where something happened to his thumb getting caught in a helmet. It'll be interesting to see about his grip on the ball. Christian McCaffrey, he's a superstar. If the Eagles can contain him, I think they wind up winning this game against the 49ers, because the way these guys have been playing the last 3-4 weeks of the season, the Eagles seem to be on the rise, where the 49ers have been playing really well, and Brock Purdy been playing exceptional. Like I said, he hurt his hand. I'm concerned about him throwing the ball in cold weather in Philadelphia, getting a grip with a banged up thumb. So we're going to see. I think the Eagles might pull this one out. It'll be close, but I think the Eagles are going to pull this one out. Now, the game I'm most worried about for myself personally, being a Patriots fan, is the Chargers and Patriots. I have been warning that the Chargers are one of these sleeper teams. They've got a solid defense that's relatively healthy. They can match up well. I think the game's going to come down to the Chargers defense and the Patriots offense, and it's going to be the experience and the star players of the Chargers defenders. Wow, Barkley, that is so loud. It's going to be the experience of the defenders of the Chargers and the inexperience on paper of the Patriots offense. But Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels, they've been there. They've won multiple championships in New England. They know what it takes. They're going to have Drake May ready to go. If Ramondre Stevenson can hold on to the ball and they cannot turn it over, I think this one's going to come down to the wire. It might be settled by the field goal at the last minute. One of those whoever has the ball last type of games. I feel this one's going to be close, like a 24-21 or 21-20, something really, really close. Fingers crossed from my point of view that the Patriots win this game and have another playoff game next week. But if the Chargers pull this one out, I wouldn't be surprised, because Justin Herbert, he's such a good quarterback. They've got weapons on the outside. Rookie running back Amarian Hampton is back. So Chargers defense versus Patriots offense is what I'm looking at. And the Patriots defense being able to stop Justin Herbert and get him on his back. He's been hit a lot. If the Patriots can get pressure on Justin Herbert, and Drake May doesn't turn the ball over on offense, the Patriots can squeak this one out, but I think that's going to be a close one. The Monday night game between the Texans and the Steelers, they have this amazing record of not losing on Monday night games for a really long time. I'm not sure that's going to be enough for them. The Texans defense, as I said in prior podcast, is terrifying and playing so well. As I also said, I think it's going to come down to CJ Stroud not making a turnover or making a big play, a big fourth down to keep a drive going, or a scramble for a touchdown, something where he has to make a play and just change the momentum. I think if CJ Stroud can do that, the Texans, their defense should handle the Steelers well. DK Metcalf will be back. The Steelers' the offense will be better with him. They lost their identity without having DK Metcalf being able to stretch the field and give Aaron Rodgers that target he's been looking for. But the Steelers got lucky last week against the Ravens, so DK Metcalf gets a chance to make up for his bonehead move, engaging with a fan. Like I said in the last video, DK, you need to get like 10 catches and over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. You need to be a stud and run all over the Texans, but the Texans defense is really, really good. The way their defense is playing and their offense is doing just enough, they're right now like my inside favorite to make it all the way to the Super Bowl because of that defense. The Steelers are going to have their hands full, but we will see. We will see. That's my speculation. Those are my predictions. I can't wait for these games. Let me know if you agree with any of my choices. Let me know who you think is going to win these games. I will talk to you guys after these first rounds of playoffs games, or if there's any new coaching changes that come up, I'll be back here to talk about it. That's it for now. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy the wild card weekend. We'll see you in the next podcast.